morning. My name is Darlene Elson Metzger, and I am the mother of 5 kids who are slobs. This morning I got up, and my kitchen was a mess from fourth meal. Do you guys know what fourth meal is? I have 3 teenage sons who think they need to eat around 12 or 1 in the morning, but not pick up, so it's summer break. But anyway, the reason why we're here this morning is to discuss and share our perspectives as siblings. And I am a sibling, and I had 12 months and 12 days of my life without my brother in it, and it was the first year, so I don't remember. So I've never known life without disability in it, and I think that brings an interesting perspective that I'm sure you all, the panelists here, will share with us as well, because we didn't have, or we had very little before. We've just known it as it is. I forgot what I was going to say. I had a bout of insomnia last night as well, so I'm not firing on all pistons, but I'm going to have Leslie keep the caffeine coming to me as we go. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to keep this really informal, fun, and so I'm going to just sit over here, but I'm going to start off by asking the panelists to introduce themselves, describe your brother or sister, gender, age, disability, and then add something interesting and quirky or different that you might not typically share about your sibling. So let's start off. And JP, I'm going to pick on you because I know you the best, and you're the only guy. So start us off, JP.
Okay, can you answer me? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hi, my name is JP. I currently go to the U of M, and my brother has significant autism, and he is 21? 20? He turns 21 in August. Get that right. Okay, cool. So, anyways, I just turned 22. Okay, now I feel old. Anyways, okay. No, I think one of the best ways to describe my brother is that he really has no care in the world, and he really just enjoys everything in life. It's one of those things. I come home and I'm like, I wish I could just have no stress and just enjoy everything. He comes home, sits there, and his favorite thing to do is watch Wheel of Fortune, strip down into his boxers and run around the house. And I'm like, I wish I could just have that complete and utter joy of every aspect of life.
All right. Most of you know me already, but my name's Bronwyn Boswell, and I'm from Colorado, and I work with Peak Parent Center, the PTI in Colorado. And my older brother, Wilson, is 34. I thought he was 33, but he's 34 really. And he has cerebral palsy, and he uses his eyes primarily to communicate. He's what some would say nonverbal, but just because it's not formal words, he communicates in a lot of ways. One thing I think about Wilson, I guess that I wouldn't normally tell people, I'm pretty much an open book most of the time, but one thing that's sort of unique is that my family's traveled to the Burning Man Festival twice together, and I don't know how many of you know about that, but it's a week-long art and music festival that takes place in northeastern Nevada, and it's very extreme elements. It's like out in the desert, and you basically are supposed to bring whatever you need to survive, but then there's lots of other things that happen. But I think when we were going to show you guys some pictures, but we're going to post pictures of all of our brothers and sisters on the website so you guys can have that personal touch. But when you see my brother and you see his wheelchair and stuff, it wouldn't seem so easy to go to this week-long crazy art festival in the desert, but we've done it twice, so that's unique, I guess.
Allison.
Hi, my name's Allison, and my little sister Amanda has Down syndrome, and I'm from Topeka, Kansas, but I go to the University of Kansas, and I'll be a sophomore next year. Amanda's going to be in 8th grade this year, which is scary. She will be the first child with Down syndrome to graduate from the Catholic school that we go to here in Topeka. And something that people don't really know about her, because she doesn't like to say, but she has a huge crush on Justin Bieber. Since she's in 8th grade, yeah, she is starting to wear makeup. She puts on some eyeshadow every day. Now, just in case she meets him, she'll look really pretty.
And Bridget. Hi, I'm Bridget Cannon Hale, and Well, I live in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm the director of the Parent Center there. My brother Michael is 37, and he has autism as well. He was one of those kids diagnosed back in the mid-70s when no one really saw autism very much. He's really cool. He's got so many interesting things about him. One of the things probably people wouldn't notice about him so much is he always in his pocket has like little twigs, and they're usually a set of 3 or 4, and they're very small. And what I discovered is just not any twig. He has a very particular type of twig he has to carry. I mean, like the number of bumps it has in it. One time he lost one, so I gave him a new one. That one just did not do. He went out and he seemed feeling them. Yeah, so he keeps like 3 or 4 twigs in his pocket, and his special spot in the house where he sets them when they're not in his pocket.
Okay, thanks guys. We're going to move on to the second question here, and it is, since you had a child with a disability in your family, how do you think your family experience was different from those of your peers who didn't have a sibling with a brother or sister? Allison, why don't you start off?
It forced me to grow up a lot sooner. I was in kindergarten when Amanda was born, so since she needed more attention when we were younger, as a child it forced me to kind of grow up sooner, which I think was a good thing too. I was more mature sooner and everything, but it also brought us closer together as a family. We did more things together to involve Amanda and get her involved in things, so it definitely brought us closer.
JP?
I think how, I guess, I've been different is the fact that it's kind of helped me like really look at the world at a bigger picture a lot earlier in life than I would have. It's made it where there's a lot more, I guess I don't live in a bubble as much as I probably would have. It's also helped me kind of just appreciate life, like how my brother enjoys every aspect of every little thing and doesn't stress about anything, and I think that's super cool, and I think a lot of people have trouble stressing on the little things, and John definitely doesn't do that. So.
Bridget?
You know, I was reflecting on this question because when I look back, for so long I didn't think of us as really that different. You know, it just felt normal to me. You know, my parents really just kind of jumped in and embraced it, and it was a family thing. And we did things most families could do. I remember there was a short period of time where my brother had issues with going out to restaurants for a while, but my parents didn't have that much money when we were really small, so we didn't go out to eat that much anyway, and not a lot of people did like we do now. So, you know, to me, I didn't feel that different. I mean, I'm sure it was different, but since I've never lived in a family that did not have a member with a disability, I really don't know what that's like. So I'm not really sure how different my experience was with someone else's. I mean, that's, you know.
I get that, and I think that's where I was going when I was talking earlier about the 12 months, 12 days never living, and then I had that brain freeze. But I've sometimes been perplexed by people's curiosity about having a sibling with disability, because to me it just was my normal, it was my life, so.
Yeah, I remember when I have friends come over occasionally and ask me a question, like about my brother, like, well, why did, I'm like, oh yeah, well, you know, like, to me that wasn't odd, because I was so used to it.
Bronwyn?
I think Wilson, I've never known a day either. He's 3 years older than me, so since the day I was born, Wilson has been my older brother. I have another oldest brother. And I think, to kind of echo what Allison said, I think that Wilson being in our family has really, really brought us together. I think I've learned huge lessons about patience, because I can't imagine how it would be to be Wilson, who needs to rely on those around him to ask the right questions to help get him what he needs. And we all know how it feels when our needs aren't being met, right? And he still manages to, you know, take every moment with, you know, as it comes, and he's extremely patient as he, you know, waits for us to, you know, get our stuff together and ask him the right things. And I think as a bigger picture, I think having him in my life has taught me about disability, and then extended to all facets of diversity, and just made me really appreciate the differences that exist in our world and how much it makes kind of the world a more rich and vibrant place. And I'm really grateful for that.
Great. And you guys have kind of hit on this question, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it. Do you guys think you are different as a person because you had a brother or a sister with a disability? Just chime in.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, now that I look back, I think at the time, growing up, I didn't look myself as how it would impact me here. But, I credit my brother with a lot of the part of the person who I am today. I mean, I certainly wouldn't be in the job that I'm in or the profession that I'm in if it weren't for probably my experience with him. I mean, I know I'd probably be in some kind of human service function, but not something, disability specific. So I think, yeah, I mean, he built a lot of character for me. I don't think, obviously he doesn't know what he gave me, but, it's been a tremendous gift.
Great. Bronwyn?
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely different. I mean, it's hard to say what anything would be like if you take it away because it's a part of your experience, right? So it's hard to sort of disconnect. I think that each person I meet in life makes me a different person. But in terms of specifically Wilson, I think that he has taught me how to have a keen sense of feeling how someone else, like recognizing how someone else is, like what they need. Like I can sense when somebody is having a hard day, and I can sort of offer myself to help them, maybe help them feel a little better. So I feel like it's not like empathy necessarily, but it's just I feel like he's helped me develop a keen sense of the energy of people around me. And then it's, I'm so excited and used to kind of helping get Wilson what he needs, that it's exciting for me to sort of feel like I have the skill to help sense that and pull that out in other people. And it's, it's also something I have to be cautious about because you can't always just like be giving of yourself, but it's also something that I don't think a lot of people have a chance to really foster. And I've been able to have the opportunity to do that sort of every day, my whole life, if that makes any sense at all.
You sound like me, who makes decisions from my limbic system, I guess I learned yesterday. I would have said my heart. I don't have very much of a logical side, but Allison.
Yeah, I think she made me different in a better way. I think she made me more compassionate and everything. I've gotten really involved in organizations that help individuals who have special needs, and I'm currently starting a pageant for girls with special needs called Miss Wonderful, and I don't think I would have ever done something like that if I wouldn't have been passionate about it through her. I think she definitely made me different, but in a positive way.
I think that my brother has definitely changed me a lot. He's made it to where I definitely appreciate more things, and also how I've been able to really think of and be more understanding of how different people do different things, and kind of looking at each situation in different perspectives, because each person is going to have a different way they view something. So Sean may sit here and look at it as you changing the channel is the end of the world in comparison to where I'm like, okay, I just changed the channel. And so being able to sit here and kind of step back and take a moment to sit here and picture it from another person's standpoint, Sean's really taught me that, because a lot of times with him, some things are just a lot more drastic than I would ever believe, and then so being able to actually really take the time and sit back and understand what's going on. So I think I learned a lot of that through helping him through completing different tasks and really helping him. So.
Okay, time to get honest and candid, guys. Did you or your brother, do you ever argue, or sister, sorry, Allison, get angry at each other, and if so, what makes that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was when I was thinking about this today, I actually watched Rain Man again. Recently it was on TV, and I stopped and watched it. And my brother has, a lot of those ritualistic characteristics that's associated with autism. And I so relate to the scene in the movie where Ray, if you've all seen Rain Man, hopefully most of you have, needs to get new underwear. And he has to go to Kmart, because Kmart is where he buys his underwear. And Tom just stops the car and flips out and says, "Why does it matter where you buy underwear? It should not be, underwear is underwear," and flips out, and he goes, "Let me tell you something, Ray, Kmart sucks." And so, and it's just, but that feeling he had, like, why does it matter why we have to do it this way? You usually, you appreciate some of those nuances and some of those routine type things for the most part, but sometimes you'll hit that wall where, really, why is this so important to have to do it this way? You know, I mean, and I think, you know, and I used to feel guilty when I would get frustrated, you know, with him from time to time, and I'm like, just let it go, and I realized you can't let it go, that's part of who he is. But yeah, there are times where, yeah, I get frustrated, and I have those Tom Cruise moments, like the Rain Man, but they're usually pretty short-lived.
Allison?
Yeah, we definitely fight. She's getting to the teenager stage. She's 13, so we fight about like really insignificant things, like just normal sisters do. We fight about who gets to choose where we go to eat lunch after church, and we fight about who gets to hold the remote. And now we're getting to the stage where she's starting to borrow my clothes, and that's really not going well. We also fight about, like, she at dinner, the fork has to be in a certain place. Everything has to be done in a certain order. But if we're in a hurry, if she has a basketball game, we don't have time for that, it still has to be in the same order. So we'll fight, like, we need to get going, we need to go, but it has to be in that same order. So we argue about that, but yeah, we definitely fight.
JP?
I think my brother and I used to fight a lot more when I lived at home, and I'd sit there and I'd be watching TV and he'd change the channel or something, or he'd just walk in and turn it off just because he could, and then we get in a fight and just start, and his cuss words are different types of bread. So he would yell like pumpernickel bread, like the big one was yum yum white bread, like so. Like over the rainbow was a big one, or dinosaurs, like, and that was his cuss words. Like he'd sit there, and it was funny because he'd be in school and he'd yell at his parent. He was definitely cussing at him. But so yeah, we definitely used to fight, especially over just those same little things that brothers and sisters always fight over. Sometimes we get in some fights that would definitely be different, where he would definitely abuse the fact that he knew if he acted like he was going to cry and throw a fit, that I would possibly give in. But then I started realizing really quick that it was completely fake. So the moment Mom walked through the door, he was fine. So I don't know, we definitely fought a lot, like the normal brother-sister kind of thing. It was mostly over the same stuff, like I don't want to watch that show, why do you want to watch that? So.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, Wilson's a very diplomatic and like fair person. So I'm thinking about fights growing up. It was mostly my oldest brother Brooke and I who would fight and really get at it. I mean, we didn't get along until we didn't live in the same house too. But it was one of those things where, like, you know, I would do something or Brooke would do something that wasn't good, and then we'd get in a fight, and then my parents would come in the room and be like, Wilson, what really happened, you know? And he would always, you know, tell the truth about what happened, which is good, right? Good to be truthful, but it was pretty frustrating. To always get called out. I think that, yeah, I think that's the main thing, and he co-teaches a college class now, and I usually support him in class with physical sports, communication sports and stuff. And still, it's like, he never wants to end class early, right? Like, he always wants to go to the end, like, follow through fully. He's very responsible and committed, which is all good, but sometimes it's like, come on, seriously, last day of class, we really have to stay until the last minute, like, loosen up a little bit. But it's good, he holds us all to a high standard, so.
Okay, do you guys feel that other people made assumptions about you or your family because you had a brother or sister with a disability? If so, what kinds of assumptions and how did those assumptions make you feel? JP?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's kind of hard to kind of think about it back then, but definitely once I kind of moved into the school and came here from the military education system, it was. They definitely made some assumptions on the side that I was going to always be there to help Sean, that I was the go-to person, that I would know everything in the world, and they didn't really. I was never looked at just as another kid in the school. I was always like the kid to go to for something, like whether it be an issue with. And it also just made me like more of like a sight in the school of like people knew who I was. I was known to all the faculty, and so it was very different. I don't think I ever felt like just a normal student because I always felt like I stood out. Which it was nice because I got a lot of recognition, and I also had a lot of learning disabilities when I was younger, and so I got a lot of good support because of Sean. So I don't think we would have done all that. So it was definitely I definitely believe that people do make a lot of assumptions just on the side that, oh, you should be really caring and you should know and you should be able to help somebody and know everything that's wrong and be able to really work through his issues, or the fact that I have time to help Sean if he has an issue, like it's my job. And it's like, I'm a student going through high school, having a class the same as you, like, like, I'm definitely going to jump up. That's a good assumption, but at the same time, that assumption was made for me. So, all different.
Bridget.
You know, if people made assumptions about my family, I probably wasn't really aware of them. You know, I'm sure there were people that made assumptions. You know, I had a different experience. I didn't go to the same school my brother did. My sister and I went to the local Catholic school, and my brother went to the public school system because they had more supports for him. So we weren't in the same school system. He was very much still part of the community. I mean, all my friends, of course, knew about him, and he came out in public and all those kinds of things. My sister, though, now he was talking, I probably should ask her about this, because when my family moved when I was in college, my sister was in high school. My brother and sister were in the same high school for, I think, her whole high school career, because in Michigan, you go till you're 26. So I probably should ask her that question, you know, if she ever had that experience, because I don't think we've really talked about it. But I think people just assumed that our life was harder. I think that our life was somehow more different, or like if we went on trips, like your brother went with you to Europe. Well, yeah, he's a member of the family. Where would he go? You know, I mean, like we're supposed to leave him home. You know, or we're supposed to, like, if we're going to a wedding, is your brother coming? Well, yeah, of course he's coming. He's going to be really excited. They play Barry Manilow. You know, I mean, they were just like, it was just, you know, well, what does he do? Well, he loves Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. You know, I mean, he loves music. I mean, he's got a very full life. You know, even though, you know, the perception obviously with a lot of people with autism is they're not very social creatures, or they have struggled with that. And certainly my brother does struggle with a lot of reciprocal communication skills, but he very much wants to be with other people. You know, he wants to go out to restaurants, and he likes to bowl, and he likes to go places with the family, and he loves to fly, and he loves to travel. But I think it was for us that he was a part of our family, so that's what we were doing, that's what he was doing. And even when his behaviors were at the point where those were difficult for him, he came along anyway, because, like, you know, you're gonna learn how to behave in public because this is what's expected. And so we just kind of rolled with it. And I'm sure sometimes we made some very interesting people watching for others. But I think people assumed our life was harder. I don't know that it was harder, it was just about our life. You know, I think it's just part of who you are.
Allison.
Yeah, I would say people definitely make assumptions sometimes. When Amanda went into kindergarten at the school we went to, the child with Down syndrome had never gone to the school before. So people didn't really know what to expect at first, but being in that school, we don't have a lot of resources, so Amanda stays in the classroom with her kids the whole time. And now going into 8th grade, since about 2nd grade, every year parents call in requesting that their kids are in Amanda's class. The kids just absolutely love her. They fight over who's her partner for projects and everything. I think they've become more compassionate just because of having Amanda in their class. Last week at recess, they have a new kid in their class. His name's Brendan, and they were playing kickball, and they accept Amanda in all of their recess games, PE games, and Amanda kicked the ball and was starting to run the bases, and he threw the ball to get her out, because that's what you do in kickball. And they're at the age where they're starting to get kind of the jockey kind of act, but all the boys ran up to him and said, "Brendan, we don't throw the ball at Amanda." And Amanda's parents thought that was really cool, that they like still stick up for her and everything, and they're a really close grade. So I think it's almost the opposite assumption, is they think at first they kind of had low expectations for her, but now she takes the same science and history classes. She just read To Kill a Mockingbird, so she's doing really well, so now people have really high assumptions of her, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think people have made a lot of assumptions. You guys all made me, like, I thought I had known what I was going to say, and then I had like this idea based on what you said. I remember just thinking sort of the same thing. Like, it was just my family. It was how my life had always been. It was every day, you know, the same sort of thing that any other family would go through. And then in 7th grade, one of my best friends, I think it was like, I don't know, my parents were going out to dinner, and so I was going to stay home and hang with Wilson. And I was younger, and so I was never a babysitter by any means, but Wilson needs support. I mean, he can't roll over by himself, he needs a wheelchair to get around, he needs someone to push that wheelchair, so he has a lot of physical needs. And I remember my friend just being like, why do you always have to do this? Like, you know, why don't your parents hire someone else, or why don't they do this? You know, you have a lot of burdens for being like the younger sister. And I remember being like, huh, and I like had never even thought about it, and it really sort of rubbed me the wrong way. And it was the first time I started to think about this and really make sure in myself I wasn't having allowance for other people's assumptions about my family and our burdens to like soak into me. And then I started to realize that, you know, it is a perception of like the whole like, oh, bless your heart. And it's like, oh my God, don't, like, please don't say that, because that, you know, to me reflects this idea of pity, like, you poor thing, like, look at what you've had to do. And had they, you know, been in my shoes, they would have experienced kind of all of the lessons and the experiences that they didn't have as a result. So I think like the assumptions a lot of people have made are like pity-based. And I think my family and the really radical and outlandish things that we've done and just sort of being out there on the edge have taught people, wow, now I pity myself because I haven't done all these wild things, you know? And it's sort of like trying to shift the poor you to like, whoa, you, like, wow, you guys are just another family doing what any family would do. And then there, you know, it's just, the one thing that's really always upset me is like being out with my brothers. Some people come up to me like, oh, what home do you work for? And it's like, oh man, no home. We live at home. Yeah, right? So it's that kind of thing. I think people make assumptions based on sort of the historical norms about disability being a separate thing, like separate from society. And I think Wilson being in our lives and the way that we've always sort of existed is challenging those traditional assumptions about what disability is and what it means, and sort of helping in, like, without telling somebody, like, you know, all of those things, just being in the world and being on the edge challenges those assumptions and teaches people to question the assumptions they're making about my family. So.
Sounds as if none of you have been in therapy, because therapists make huge assumptions about having a sibling with a disability in your life. And I didn't go to that therapist very long because I just didn't like everything about me. Every wrong thing had to do with my brother. And that did not sit well with me either, so.
The same things happened to me.
Yeah. So you've been in therapy?
I've been in therapy for a lot of reasons other than...
Exactly. Great. Had nothing to do with that experience.
But that was the same thing. It's like, to me, there's no point in going to therapy if somebody's just going to blame somebody else for all of the struggles you're having or anything like that. So,
right.
But I've experienced the same thing. Like, wow, you really do have a lot of burdens. And it's
yeah.
like, oh God.
Yeah, don't you hate that? I'm almost like, you know what, all my, excuse the expression, shit is my shit. I need to own it. You know, it's not anyone else's, it's mine.
Totally.
All right. Okay, so what are some of the hardest aspects of your relationship with your brother or sister? Allison, why don't you go first on this one?
I think one is she's really stubborn. That's definitely a hard aspect. When I was younger too, both my parents are accountants and financial advisors, so tax season, they're both working really long days, so I had to grow up and kind of be the mom figure, getting her ready for school and everything, and her being stubborn was one of the hardest aspects, because if we were late to school, then it was my fault, but she was the one being stubborn, and it was just a mess. But I think the other thing too, that it's not hard, but again, it's different, is that we can't do some of the sister things that a lot of sisters get to do together. We spend hours and hours every day together, but some of the things like her coming prom dress shopping with me, or like talking about like the cute boys in 8th grade, or there's just like different things that it's made it kind of hard. Like when I was younger, my friends would talk about them and their sisters like doing different things together, but me having fun with my sisters, us going to the zoo, or us going to get our nails done, but at the same time it was kind of hard not being able to do some of the really like sisterly things together. But I've come to accept that now, and I've learned that doing some of the other things we've grown closer, but at first when I was younger, like 8th grade, freshman year of high school, that was kind of hard for me because I realized at first that maybe we weren't going to do some of those things together.
Bronwyn.
I think the hardest aspects have been related to things like access. So you know, having that my brother uses a wheelchair, not being able to access certain things by nature of a stairway. And we've gotten really creative about not letting things like that, like physical barriers, you know, get in the way of access. But more recently, the hardest thing has been not related to actually his disability. I mean, he's had a lot of medical challenges. He had pretty significant scoliosis and got a reconstructive back surgery, and he had to be on a ventilator, and the doctors decided to keep him on a ventilator for a couple of days longer than probably he needed to be, and so he acquired MRSA in his lungs. And since then, it's in addition to like just the reality of his disability and his physical needs, he has like all these other layers of medical needs. And actually, not this past 12 months, but the 24 months before that, he spent probably like net 60 or 75 days in the hospital, off and on. And it was really rough and it was really scary. So it was hard because it was like every day felt like it could be the last day. And that's completely unrelated to disabilities. It's just sort of an evolution that's happened through medical stuff. But I'm happy to say that last summer he got a trach put in, and we were 1 year hospital free. So that's given, I think, me and my family, and Wilson especially, like a lot of hope to say that this path of constantly feeling like, oh my gosh, you know, is this going to be it? Could this be it? Has now turned into no, none of that was, and you know, we may need to not really worry about that anymore. But it's medical stuff that's been hard, and sort of the worries about losing my brother, not my brother, not our relationship, not disability, not any of those sorts of things. Just like the fear of losing him because of medical stuff has been probably the hardest thing, at least of recent. We're on a new track, so I'm really happy about that.
Bridget.
You know, I think the hardest thing is probably related to the disability, but not necessarily about him. I worry about the future. You know, he lives, my dad died when I was pretty young, and he lives with my mom. And, you know, she gets a lot of pressure from others. Well, he's 37 years old. He should be living somewhere else. He needs to be independent. You know, my brother is independent. He just happens to live in my mom's home. You know, we went and looked at all the different living options, which is probably a kind term for some of the places that we saw. And, you know, we have this barometer in our family. If it's somewhere that we wouldn't live, why should he? And so he lives at home. And my sister lives, you know, only like a mile and a half from my mom. Of course, I'm the one who left the state. So I have a lot of guilt with that sometimes. I feel like my sister, sorry, gets a lot put on her. But I know my mom worries about it. And finally, you know, my sister and I had this long talk, and, you know, we finally said, Mom, you know, we got this. You know, he's always going to be a part of our family. He will always be with us. And, you know, so I worry, like, you know, I'm the older, they're both the older than he is. And so, you know, okay, well, what if it happens to happen? That's what we can do. You know, it's all this stuff. And so that's probably the hardest thing, just making sure that, you know, you get this caretaker role, even though he's your brother, you know, and you really care about him and you want him to be happy and healthy and someone to love him as much as you love him. So that's probably the hardest thing. I so emotional when I talk about it.
You're fine. You're gonna make me cry too.
Sorry.
JP, I don't think you've answered this question.
No, I have not. I think like the hardest issue. I also think about the future, especially with my parents and stuff. Since John will probably always have to have some kind of support, and we're having a ton of issues with support as far as how the laws and everything are changing, and losing people who watch Sean and everything like that. So that's been very difficult. But I think on the main aspect that I always kind of cognitively think is hard is Sean's kind of always been trapped in this whole kind of like, it always seems like he kind of gets stuck into like a developmental stage. So kind of like right now he kind of feels like maybe a year or two he definitely felt more like a toddler. Like he just felt like he was only going to be like 3 or 4 for like as far as that kind of sense, like he liked to do all that same kind of stuff, and it was just very hard on my parents and I, and he just developed so a lot slower than like any of my other friends' siblings did, and so it's just very different. It kind of feels like and then he regresses. So he'll go from like making all these leaps and strides and huge like accomplishments, and then the next like a month or so he can't do it, and you get very frustrated, and you can't. And it's one of those things that I think the hardest thing is to also with Sean's a human being just like anybody else, and so sometimes he may be being lazy. Other times he may actually not be able to do it. Because I remember like one time he sat there and he decided to try to get me to believe that he couldn't open a can of pop. So I threw all of his pop out to the street, but then I sat there and I caught him in the kitchen opening pop and pouring himself a glass. so I won that time. But other times, sometimes he actually can't do it. Like he sometimes actually loses the words and can't actually have the conversation that he wants to have. And so it's very hard to watch him like make these huge strides and then later completely lose everything, and you just don't even know what's happened.
Bridget and JP kind of touched on something that I'd like to have Allison and Bronwyn chime in on, and that's the future.
Me first? Okay. Yeah, my sister is pretty high functioning, so they think she might be able to get an apartment eventually, or some type of group living, but I think for now she'll probably live with my parents until she gets older, the same kind of thing. Like, we don't want to put her in a place where we wouldn't live, and she's so close to my parents that I think not living with my parents, she just wouldn't know what to do, I think. And there's actually a teacher that went to my high school, and she adopted 2 or 3 kids with special needs, and she might be putting an addition onto her house and then having like a group home at her house and kind of getting those kids to interact. So I think that definitely does scare my parents of the future. I was so much younger when Amanda was born that I don't really know as much about her future just because I'm like just starting college. So they don't really fill me in on that kind of stuff because I don't think they want to worry me about it. But I definitely think that she'll live with my parents until my parents pass away. That's probably the most likely outcome right now. And then I've always said that I would take Amanda in after that. But what definitely scares me is she doesn't have a lot of medical issues or anything, but she has little things like sleep apnea, where she uses the mask to sleep and stuff like that. But it does worry me that their length of life is so much shorter. So I think my biggest worry is that she'll pass away before me, and that scares me more than where she's going to live or who she's going to live with. It scares me of me not having to live without her. So I think that's the big thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, we just recently, my family started having family meetings, like when we call them that, and they're actually really fun, and sometimes we don't really always focus on the agenda, we just all talk and sort of have a family conference call. But my oldest brother, Brooke, and I have always had a loose commitment. He lives in California, and my parents and Wilson and I all live in Colorado Springs. I live in a different house, and Wilson lives with my parents, primarily because he has a lot of really intense needs. And he has his own support team. He's on a home health care waiver, so he hires and fires his own support people. So he really gets to direct his own care and train the people that he wants to be in his life. So that's really nice. And so Brooke and I are really trying to get more involved, learning about like the trust that Wilson has and who's on the board and how that works and what happens when my parents pass away. And we're trying to become more involved and knowledgeable about those sorts of systems. And I think that, it's just always been sort of a loose commitment, but it is something that, makes me nervous. But in terms of my role in the PTI, I know that there's so many people that I know who can help me navigate the future. And, I know that you're never really alone, and there's always people that can help you think creatively about how to make things happen. So we just recently have been talking about trying, now that Wilson's more medically stable, about trying to figure out how we can start at my parents' house, completely taking them and me out of like the specific support role figure, and but still allow him to have 24-hour self-directed care in his home and the community. And he's not always in our home by any means. And then once we can kind of get a really good plan for that, helping him transition to his own place of living. And it's kind of scary and hard. We actually just a couple weeks ago really started talking about this and calculating money and things like that. And I think that's something that we all feel like Wilson deserves a shot at, is really living on his own, but not living in a place or a facility or a group home, you know, still really allowing him to have independence and choosing his roommates, whether or not they also have needs or disabilities, but, you know, really having it all be about what he wants. And so it's exciting and intimidating, but I think it just begins with having a conversation. You know, this is definitely not something I was thinking about when I was going to be a sophomore in college, and you know, eventually it's just something that you'll transition into, and it's scary, but it's gonna be all right, and you know, you just gotta get creative sometimes to help make that happen, because the world doesn't really always fit that model of it being about an individual when it comes to disability. It's like people think of it as disabilities, but really it should always be about what does the individual want, and how can we kind of make that happen. So.
Yeah, actually, I'll chime in. My parents did a really nice job of never saying to my sister and I that you are responsible for your brother when we cannot be. I mean, they never put that pressure on us growing up, ever. And they were really conscious of that. So that need for us to feel like we are responsible came about on our own. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Okay, on a more positive and upbeat note, when have you felt proud of your brother or sister? Bronwyn.
I mean, a couple of the times that stand out is just, I mean, his resilience the last few years has made me really proud. But in high school, my dad was an English teacher in our neighborhood high school, which was just down the road from our house. And the principal of that high school was terrible. He discriminated against Wilson. He was violating many laws. But I think he did it because he was like, well, you know, his dad works here. Like, he can't. Where are you going to sue the school that you work in? You know, and so Wilson really got bullied and treated very badly by the administrative leadership of that high school. And this was before I was in high school with him, but he made the choice to switch schools, which is something that he was never willing to waver on. It's like he always wanted to go to school with his friends in his neighborhood. He always did. After kindergarten, he always was included in his neighborhood school in the regular classroom. And so he really didn't want to leave the neighborhood school, but he made a choice to go to an environment and go to a different high school in town still, where he really had a completely different experience as a result. And that is, I know it sort of hurt his pride probably for a minute to like succumb and say, no, I'm going to give this a try. But I mean, he did it, and he went, and he was so much more successful the last couple years. And I was proud that he was willing to sort of put himself out there and try that, and then it was really successful. So that's one kind of school example, I guess.
Bridget.
Really, I'm proud of my brother every day, you know, for everything that he does. You know, he lives a lot with anxiety, which comes from the perseveration side of autism, and can sometimes be very anxious on things, so sometimes it's really hard to tell if he's really happy or not. I mean, he's content a lot of the times, but, you know, I know he has a lot of worries because of that perseveration piece. I'm proud of him because he has learned to adapt to our culture and our society. You know, society doesn't do very well, as we all know, sometimes adapting to people that are different. And, you know, he has really learned to adapt and I think live a full life and be happy. You know, my brother and I talk on the phone every single day. And it is the first 3 minutes are the same conversation every single day. We have to go through the exact same questions and same answers, you know, because that's a routine for him. And then we can talk about other things unrelated to those questions. But, you know, I think I'm just proud of him for the person he is, because I'm sure it's not easy to navigate a world where sometimes socially for you it can be really difficult, and he's done that. And so I'm proud of him for that. I mean, I'm just proud of him for the person he is, you know, and appreciate all the fun things about him.
JP?
Yeah, I think I'm proud of Sean for a lot of things, but I think mostly it's whenever you can really just see his personality shine, and when you can really just sit here and kind of see that he's just kind of like overcome like all the kind of stuff that he has to deal with. And so like whether it be, I think I was really proud of him, even though this was horrible, that he sat there and he kind of watched my mom make him things in the microwave. And one time he just sat there and I put something in the microwave and then put it on 999 and then hit start. And it was really cool that he was actually able to do that. And so I was really proud of him, even though he was trying to build the house, but it was still, it was still really cool. Or like whenever he like stands up for himself. I was not a good role model, and we taught him some bad things to say sometimes. And so we taught him how to say I'm a gangster, and he once said this to his parent when he didn't want to do something. But it was so funny because he was actually like expressing himself, saying I don't want to do that, I don't want to go swing. Or when he decided that he used to go swimming and he used to love swimming, but for some reason he decided he didn't want to go swimming anymore, so he basically straight up said no and just let it very well known that he is not going swimming. And I was just very proud that I think, especially with Sean, like his life is very almost directed. Like people are kind of like loosely kind of directing him in a direction, and I think it's really cool when he kind of takes his life in his hands and just like no. Or when he like really decides what he wants to do. So like my mom brought home 2 shirts and he picked out exactly what shirt he wanted and let it very well known that this is the one I want, and I'm gonna throw this one on the ground.
Oh well, no thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Alice.
Yeah, my sister did an exact same thing. She put popcorn in the microwave because that's what we eat as a snack every night, but she put it on for 30 minutes instead of 3. So then when my mom got in the shower, there was a lot of smoke in the kitchen. But yeah, I would say the same kind of thing. Like, she makes me proud every day. Like, I'm proud to be able to call her my sister. Like, that's the coolest job in the world, being able to call Amanda my sister. But I think I'm most proud of her for exceeding people's expectations, and then also just everyday things that she does, like coming home with an A on her homework, or getting her serve over in a volleyball game. Things like that make me really proud, because you can see how happy and proud of herself that she is. So I think when she's proud of herself, it makes you more proud of her because she realizes it. But then also the little things, like when she learns a new word, or she learned how to write her name, but she did it for the first time in Sharpie on her wall. So it's little things like that too. I'm proud of her for being so positive at school. I know that she can see maybe that like she has different math, but she does all the other same classes, but she still like stays so positive. Or people having a bad day, like she'll go over and she'll pat you on the back. Or her little thing is she'll like go up to you, and if she sees you're sad, she'll poke you and she'll say, "Gotcha," and then people know like that's her way of saying like, "I hope you have a better day," like, "I gotcha," like, be happy and stuff. So I'm proud of her for being kind of like the positive person that her other students wouldn't be like, and for just enjoying life too. I'm proud of her for that.
You guys have a room of moms and some dads here. So if you had a piece of advice for them, what would you say? Bridget. Oh, go ahead, Alice. Go.
No, I would say don't treat them special just because they have disabilities. I would say don't give them extra, like, what's the word I'm looking for, like, privileges just because they have a disability. Treat them like they're other siblings, or if they don't have other siblings, just treat them like a normal kid. That's how we taught Amanda. If she wanted something like candy, we say no, like, you can't have that. And she grew up like a normal child, but I think if they grow up with special privileges, then their behavior, they act younger and they don't mature like they should. I spent the last 2 weeks volunteering on the East Coast with, it was like a special needs school where the kids lived there and everything, and a lot of the students just got what they want whenever they wanted it, and their behavior ended up being really bad and immature. And I think it's just better to treat them like a normal kid, ground them if they need to be grounded, or put them, if they're in trouble, then make sure that they know that, because I think that's definitely, in the long run, it's been a positive thing for my little sister.
Bridget.
Yes, it's a tough one to answer. I think everyone in this room in particular knows this.
We only have about 20 minutes.
Set the bar high. I think there were times when, my parents, I was guilty of it at times too, was underestimating what he was capable of doing. And it wasn't until I got older I remember saying, "Mom, seriously, he could do this. Let him do this." he knows how to do this, or, why not try that? I think he can do it. So I think, it's really hard because you get so used to being in that caretaking role, it's really hard to take that step back and let them possibly fail. Because I think that needs to happen sometimes, and I know that was a really big fear of my parents sometimes is to let them fail, to let them fail. And that's hard. I'm a parent, but I would think that, it's hard, you want to save your kids from that. And, but I think even in particular when they do have some special needs, it's sometimes even more important to raise that bar high, and there are going to be times when you think they're going to fail and then they're going to surprise you and they're not. And I think sometimes, we underestimate what they're capable of doing.
Bronwyn.
I think that this was hard, and I'm like, I think you guys could all probably give me advice. But I think one thing that it's more experience that my parents have told me about what helped them. And a couple examples. In kindergarten, Wilson went to a school that was primarily other kids with physical disabilities, a lot of whom didn't talk also. And I guess, so the story goes, my oldest brother and my mom went to pick Wilson up from school one day. They walked into school and all the lights were off in the hallway. And so my brother started asking these questions like, why are the lights off? Isn't this supposed to be a school? How old would have Brooke been? 7. So he's like a 7-year-old, and he's like, why are the lights off? What's going on? And then all the students' wheelchairs were in one end of the school, and he was like, this is a bad design school. This school is gonna sink. There's too much equipment down here on the side. And so went and they picked Wilson up and they were leaving, and Brooke said to my mom, why doesn't Wilson go to my school? Isn't Wilson good enough to be in my school? And that's not to say that my parents weren't thinking the same things. They were also working with a system that said this is where Wilson should go, this is where he's going to be best educated. But it sort of took my brother really putting it out there and challenging them to say, yeah, Wilson is good enough to go to your school. And now we have to be just more vigilant in our existing feelings of advocating for him to do that. And then a similar thing supposedly happened with me too. I went to a summer camp. It's a week-long summer camp up in Denver. And I went and it was awesome, and I came back and I was like, why Wilson should come to this camp? And my parents were kind of like, well, I don't know if the wheelchair is really going to work very well in that mountain camp, and you guys, you go do the morning song up on that hill, and how's he going to get up there? And I sort of asked them the same question, why isn't Wilson good enough to go to this camp? And then we ended up working and getting him to the camp. So I think young people are so smart and so innovative, and I think that you can listen to the wisdom of your kids, I guess. And those examples, I think, really helped drive my family and also form sort of our family's orientation. So Wilson's good enough to do everything. And sometimes the world's not set up to make it really easy to do that, but we just have to figure out a way to make that happen. So listening to young people, I think, is, I guess, the advice that I know you guys will do too, just to reinforce that.
Awesome. JP.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I don't know if you guys all know my mom's back there. And my mom's awesome. She's always been thinking of multiple steps ahead of the game of what Sean needs and everything. And I think that's very important, especially with working in the special education sector, especially with supports and trying to find somebody to help support Sean throughout in the community has been huge. So she's always been great at that. But I think kind of echo to some of the things is letting Sean fail is probably a good thing, because sometimes we can kind of get trapped into the idea that sometimes he's actually cognitive skills aren't up to the level to do something, but then other times he's just like any other kid. I'm gonna be lazy. If you're gonna cut my hot dog up, put cheese on it, bring it straight to me while I'm watching TV, yes, I'll let you do that. It's the thing that he can sit there, he can peel an orange, but if somebody's gonna peel it for me, nobody else peeling an orange. So it's kind of one of those things where it's just really trying to push the limits of what you think they can do, and not kind of making assumptions. With Sean, sometimes that you make you get stuck into the thing where he's not going to want to do that, or he's been having a rough week. Yeah, I don't think we should go there if they have Pepsi because he may try to bulldoze me. But other than that, because John sometimes he has an obsession about Pepsi and he sees it inside of a case. Every once in a while, that Pepsi's way more important than anything else. And so, but other days, then he's like perfectly fine. He'll sit there and he can hey Sean, we're only going to get one can, and then, but you never know until you try. Like you don't, if it's all about taking risks and kind of gambling, but if you don't actually take the risk, then you'll never find out.
We have about 10 minutes left. And so I'm going to use this time to look to you guys to ask some questions and get what you want out of this. I do, however, have to offer just a little piece of advice. I know I'm the facilitator, but I think it is moms and dads don't need to sweat the siblings. It's not a big deal. We kind of turn out okay. I don't want to brag, but you guys seem awesome, and we all find our way. I haven't met very many siblings that I haven't been in awe of, so don't sweat it. So, questions and answers.
You guys are great. Really wonderful. Thank you. I guess I do have a question. It's based on my own family observation. My daughter with Down syndrome just turned 25, and my younger daughter is 22. And during my older daughter, Eleanor's life, because of her Down syndrome, I think people have tended to cut her a lot of slack. I know sometimes I do. The one person in her life who's never done that is her sister, who is like, get over it. You know, come on, you can do this. And I think that's been a really important thing in Taylor's life, that her sibling is the one person who just really doesn't have any patience with it. Has that been part of your observation too? Because I think it's really, I think it's interesting to watch, and I think it's been very important to Eleanor's development. If she is really, like you were saying about the hot dog, if Eleanor's in that mood, she knows to avoid her sister, because there's no way on earth her sister's going to cut her hot dog.
Anybody just chime in.
No, I definitely think it's the same way. I am definitely probably the roughest stomach than anybody else. It's like one of those things that if he throws a fit, if he gets really upset and starts crying, and I think he's bluffing, then I'll just walk out of the room, I'll go outside, and all right, let's see how long this lasts. And then I'll come back in, and sometimes it'll just be done right then, and they'll see me, and then they'll start again, and I'm like, yep, and there we go. And so it's one of those things that I definitely don't come to slack. I'm definitely a lot harder on him. Like I'll definitely try to push him to do everything. I'll like kind of make sure he does as much as possible, and then I can always sense whenever he's starting to have issues with something. But I'll definitely be the one that sit here and try to push him over the edge. I at least try to get him a little bit more frustrated than some other people will let him get before I stop.
Yeah, I definitely, I think I know Michael well enough now, since I've lived with him, lived a long life with him so far, that I think I know when I can hold him accountable, for what types of things I can hold him accountable, and for what types of things I can't. But definitely every opportunity that I have where I know that he can be accountable or capable of doing something, he does it.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better. I know that I was kind of the one that pushed Amanda in schoolwork a lot because I was really serious about school. And so they were, her para and different teachers at school were thinking like, well, she can do a different, like modified version because her essay would take a long time and, she could just do multiple choice. That way she just has to write a letter. But I just really pushed her to do essays and stuff. So I think that by me pushing her, it's been good for her in the long run because I knew she could do it. And if she could do it, then she definitely should.
It's interesting. I don't know exactly how to respond. I think that, if anything, I feel like Wilson has really challenged me. I think that he is, as I said, he's very diplomatic, he's very fair, and he's also very, fiercely set in his values. And if I ever wavered, he makes sure to tell me about it. And so I think that was my initial reaction, is that he's really challenged me. But then, and I was going to give an example, but that was going to be the other side, but then I was just going to reinforce what I just said. So I'm not going to give that example, I don't think. But I really think that, I think he's challenged me always, and he's always really ridden me hard to never waver in the person that I am and to be very strong in my own values and to continue to expand them and teach myself about the world and about, exploring that world and exploring myself and really becoming stronger in my own values and who I am as a person and being comfortable in my own skin too.
Other questions? That's all right.
Okay, I'm a sibling and a parent, and this is a tough question for me to ask because I'm going through this right now, but what do you do when you are in conflict with your parent about your sibling? You really feel strongly about one thing, they really feel strongly about the other, and to the point where it gets ugly. How do you get beyond that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's got an answer for
I
that?
don't, we haven't had that happen,
Uh-huh.
so I don't really have a good answer. Does anyone have that happen?
Yeah, I guess so. Mine's more on, my mom sometimes used to give Sean a lot of slack, and I didn't like it at all. So I kind of stepped up and said, he can do a lot more than you're letting him do. Like, just on the side that when my mom was home, I peeled an orange. I don't think she ever saw him do it. Like, it was one of those things at the house, I was like, I don't like peeling oranges either. So, and it's kind of one of those things that we used to get in fights and stuff, especially my dad, he used to never want to be at home with Sean by himself, and my mom and I definitely got in some fights about that. Then this is ridiculous. This is it's his son. Why is he not there with hanging out with Sean? Like why does he trust the neighbor kid to stay with Sean more than he trusts himself? And so then it was really funny when my mom and I abandoned him for a week with him, and then we came home and the whole house was destroyed. So then we kind of realized why. So I understand from her point that she just wanted to come back to a house that was still standing. But definitely, we've definitely gotten in those head-putting situations, and I think it's one of those things that you kind of just have to kind of think of each other on a level playing field. You can't really think of each other as parent and child. It's kind of supposed to be level, that you guys both care about this individual a lot, and that you guys both have their best interests in mind, and that you can't be one of those things that you're both that you're my daughter or something. Why am I having this conversation? My mom's always giving me the same conversation room and being not sat there and thought of me as why are you telling me to raise I'll hurry myself. So that's actually nice.
Anybody else have some words of wisdom on that question?
We've never had really anything like that happen, just because my parents have her best interest and I agree with them. People thought she was crazy when my mom wanted to send Amanda to a private school who didn't have a lot of resources for kids with special needs, but I definitely agreed with that because I wanted my sister to go to the same school as me. So we've never really had anything, but I would agree if something did come up that I'm as equal as my parents are and looking out for my sister just as much as they are. So yeah.
I don't know if I have anything other than it's challenging to have lots of strong personalities in my family. I think eventually we haven't had a blowout where we feel super strongly about the end decision that's been made, but sometimes arriving to that decision is really stressful. So I think that going to therapy and learning about communication and how I can be a more effective communicator has helped me sort of be able to navigate those feisty, passionate situations and discussions. But yeah, I agree. I think in my experience, we all want the same thing for Wilson, and sometimes it's a different route, but we get there. And for me, learning more how I can be a better communicator and not being God, my dad just never listens, and, which sometimes is true. It's taking ownership for that and figuring out how I can help navigate it so that I don't just add extra passion that's unneeded and impassioned.
I think we've had small issues. I was thinking sometimes with my mom as an example where I'd like her to be, I sometimes use a strategy I think we use sometimes with a lot of families we work with. When they're not really where we'd like them to be, we embrace them where they are and then slowly feed them tools to help bring them along to where we'd like them to be. And that's been really effective, when those situations have come up. They've been more minor situations, but I think that works.
Okay, we're gonna have one more question, then be done.
So my children are still very young, and the oldest child in our family has disability and medical concerns. And it's just part of life for the younger siblings. But the middle son is starting to ask questions. Why does Logan do things this way? Why does he always have to have his rocks on the counter? Why can't I put my rocks on the counter? And I'm taking into account some of this, don't give him so much slack, because I think we cut Logan a little more slack. But my biggest thing coming up is wondering what your parents did or did not do as you are growing up in the situation. It's just what you're accustomed to bridge your entry into kind of the culture and the community of disability, because I feel like we're on the precipice of that, where the siblings will start to understand that there's this community out there, and to be advocates and to be supportive and to bridge that with the family life and with the community life.
Well, I know my family, my parents talked very early on that we all take care of each other, and stick up for each other, no matter whether or not it's my brother because he has a disability or my sister. We take care of each other no matter what it is, and families stick together, and that people that aren't going to be kind to you or take care of you aren't worth our time. Yeah, I mean, I've dumped guys over the way they interacted with my brother. I've ditched friends, I remember a couple times, of the way they responded to my brother, or insensitive comments and those kinds of things. And but I would do the same for my sister, and she doesn't have a disability. I think in our family it was just kind of like we take care of each other, and we advocate. We were very much a social justice family, so you advocate for the underdog, and you care for everybody. And so I think we just kind of took that and kind of translated that into life. So it was just kind of second nature. There really wasn't, there was a time, I'll be honest, I was embarrassed about my brother when you go into that preteen stuff, like, oh God, what's he gonna do to embarrass me? And my parents embraced that. They allowed me to do that. They didn't make me feel guilty for it. They allowed me to do that because it's a normal part of a developmental process, for me. So, I think it's all in just the culture you create, as far as how you want to go out and feel that, tackle the world, for lack of a better word, to speak, so.
Yeah, I guess that my mom always made ice an option, and so I think that's kind of the best thing that she ever did, was made it an option of how much involvement I had and how involved I was in decisions and how involved I was in his education and helping him in his support network. I was kind of his personal buddy over us for 2 summers, and that was a really good experience. But I always had the option to do that. It was nothing was ever assumed on me, and so I think that was always a great situation. Because I think having the option just made me want to do it more, rather than if I was told you're going to do this and you're going to take care of him and all this. I always had the ability to choose what I want to do, even though I was obviously going to say yes.
And my little sister is younger than me, so I was in kindergarten when she was born, and for me, I started asking questions then because I didn't understand why my sister was being born, and my parents were talking about she might not talk, so I'd start learning sign language, but I didn't understand why. So I kind of started asking questions right off the bat, which I don't really remember because I was so much younger. But then the same thing, my parents made it an option, you can continue sign language if you want to, you can continue this if you want to. But the more they said it, the more I wanted to, and I think that made my sister so inseparable now. In my dorm room, if you walked into it, you would have thought it was her room because there were so many pictures of her. So I think that by having more, do what I want, the more that I wanted to be there for her. And so I think that was the best thing that my parents did.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's creating a culture, of kind of some of the L's that were used in the title, just of love and kind of support network, not all around Wilson, but around me and my oldest brother, around me and my mom, around me and my dad, and all of us helping to support each other, creating that culture of that's what a family does. And then also just keeping clear channels of communication and having allowance for getting frustrated if you don't feel like you want to, do something that's more of a support role to Wilson, and just keeping open lines of communication to help know that whatever you feel really is okay, and you have to let yourself feel that. And if you disallow yourself that, then it's going to get pent up and then it's going to end up expressing itself in a negative way. So, creating a culture of allowance to communicate and share and not having that be judgment, but just figuring out what information, you can glean from that and then use that information to move forward, productively, I think.
Yeah, I think that, at times, opportunities to talk to other siblings is nice. Some of the sibling things they have where it's all Debbie Downer because you have a child, a sibling with disability before you, I don't like those. But I like being able to share experiences. I remember my brother's going to speech therapy somewhere, and the speech therapist thought it'd be really great to get all the siblings of all the kids who were in speech therapy. There were a lot of kids with, autism, other developmental disabilities, and we all got together, and I remember I was like, maybe 12. And it was really cool, though, because I could tell some stories, people like, oh yeah, that happens in our house, too. And it was just kind of like you didn't realize how much you had in common, we went through a phase where my brother was really attached to a lot of different objects, and he had to sleep with them all in his bed. And there was no rhyme or reason to certain, well, at least to me, to certain things. Like he had a bird cage on his bed. There's no bird in it. He had a chainsaw without the blade. Hunting 100 stuffed animals and all these things. And he, in his brain, there were literally, I don't know how he slept on the thing, but he did. But there were, at least 50 or 60 things on his bed. The guy had a double bed. And he would know if one thing was missing. And you would hear him yell in the middle, like, want the so-and-so? And you'd go racing upstairs under the bed looking for where the thing went, but telling that story, there were other people that actually could relate to that. It was kind of interesting, cool. So it's just,
You guys, I think you did an awesome job. I think you are all incredible and inspirational people. And I appreciate your time and your candidness. And we are going to take a break after Barbara has a couple things to say.